Wednesday night. Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook, got Eric Naleen, got Justin Wells, got James Hayden here. Thank you for joining. If you're here already, give us a like, subscribe, help us to 10,000. If you haven't headed to Inside Texas yet, use the promo code IT1. Get yourself 2 months of access for just $1. Justin, the ULM Warhawks are talking already. They're anticipating that Arch Manning is going to start, kind of like we are as well. And their defensive coordinator, for some reason, decided to give the Longhorns some bulletin board material.
Yes. And it amazes me when guys say what they say. And I think some of it's not serious. I think they like to have some fun with it, and the media spins it and kind of goes with it too much sometimes. But, the DC saying, hey, if Arch is a starter, we've got guys that's beat him. We're not afraid. I don't think they'd be afraid of him on Saturday. That's probably what you want to say to him in the locker room. I'm not sure if you want to say that in front of camera. But then again, this is a big gap between these two teams. And so if they need that to motivate those guys in Louisiana Monroe, I'm all for it. Because I guarantee you Arch Manning probably doesn't know, and I guarantee you he does not care.
You know who Arch Manning is going to be throwing to, Eric?
Yeah,
throwing to Jonte Cook again.
He likes those second-team wide receivers because he's had so many reps with them. That's why DeAndre Moore didn't send the first team until later in fall camp. He's been really comfortable with DeAndre, Ryan Wingo, and of course Jonte Cook. Jonte is going to be good. UT boy knows that. He's one more year after this year, and then he'll be gone.
One of the things also, James, is we heard this from Wingo after the game. Like Eric mentioned, those second wide receivers, the backups that he wrote about today, they get that time with Arch, and that was evident with Wingo and Arch and Cook and Arch on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about before the show, Eric said, UT's a top 25 team with their twos because of that receiving room, for example, and the quarterback room, obviously. But I've, have posted some clips on social media, Manning to Wingo, and from Colorado State, and also this game this weekend. People really like that. I think everybody sees kind of the writing on the wall. That's a future connection. At practice, they're hitting each other. He's working with those two, so they're already building chemistry before either of them are going to be starters.
One of the cool things about that is Wingo had a fantastic spring, a strong fall. He's obviously there in the top rotation. I think he's got, I'll give some credit to Arch for that. The fact that he had a high quality quarterback giving him those opportunities in practice, and he made the most of it to where he had to start working with Quinn Ewers because of how good he was. I think there's some credit due to Arch there. And Eric, I know you've mentioned this a lot on this show, but you put it in writing today about how going position by position, the Texas backups probably can make up a top 25 team.
Yeah. Some people question that. That's fine. Back to Wingo real quick. I saw him working out at Spring Decaney before spring ball even happened. He could have had Uncle Rico throwing to him, and he would have looked like $1 million. That guy's just different. Of course, he does benefit from having Arch throwing to him and Quinn. He is just he's a different animal than Texas has had in a wide receiver in a long time, and we even include Xavier Worthy in that. But yeah, I do feel like the backups at Texas would be his top 25 caliber team, and the strength of that is the quarterback. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the country as the backup, and then they have one of the best wide receiver groups in the country are the twos at Texas. One of the best, of course, is the ones at Texas. All those guys are interchangeable, so that's the strength. Not many teams can boast the quarterback and wide receiver group that Texas has on the first team. Nobody can really match what they have on the second team when you take them in aggregate. So Texas is just an extremely deep team. A lot of people don't realize it yet. A lot of Texas fans I've noticed today don't even realize how deep the team is yet. It's going to become glaringly obvious as they get deeper into the season. And I think it's going to be pretty obvious over the next, at least this week, how good Arch Manning is, even though it is inferior competition. He's just well ahead of the curve. He's ahead of the kid in Oklahoma. He's ahead of the kid at A&M, who's got a year on him. And he's just barely getting started, hasn't even scratched the surface yet.
And just the fact that we saw that athleticism. I think there were a lot of different times throughout the course of his first year and those small glimpses that we saw where people were like, oh, it's just another Manning. And I think even on his first play against Texas Tech, like you could see him roll out that scramble. That's what it was. He ran and slid, and you're like, okay, it's a little different. And then, Steve Sarkisian is not like Tom Herman in that if you go and want to throw downfield, you got to make sure your guy is healthy enough to throw downfield. He doesn't like running the quarterback that much. But at the same time, if you got a guy who can pull away from Denver Harris on the run like Arch Manning did, you got to utilize him at some point and in spots, which I think is pretty smart.
Arch would be a really good tight end if he wanted to be. They were talking about at the Manning Passing Academy this past year where Quinn Ewers was dropping back and throwing dimes down the field. And lo and behold, Arch is down there shagging some flies himself. He would be a high-level tight end if he wanted to be. Obviously, he's not going to go that route.
If fans don't think this team is deep, ask Michael Terry III. There's a 5-star athlete out of San Antonio, Texas target, that thinks the twos look like ones. It's real. This depth is ridiculous.
Speaking of depth, was told Paul would be here, but only one stud muffin. Eric, you're holding it down for that crew today. Thank you, Texas Beats. Thank you, UT Boy, for the super chats. We appreciate that as always. James, I'm not sure if you were able to check on what Steve Sarkisian did say about the quarterback situation. He's secretive with info. But with all things pointing to Texas starting Arch Manning on Saturday, Sark talked a little bit about we're not really paying attention to the outside noise on quarterback and having, all the great news and clips and stuff that goes along with having two quarterbacks. It doesn't sound like they're letting that affect them. And I think, wonder what you think, how that affects a preparation for ULM.
Yeah. I mean, I think ULM, like we said, everybody's kind of assuming it's an unsaid thing, like who's going to be the starter on Saturday. He's playing his cards close to the chest. It's kind of coach speak, so to say. But we were at the press conference. Joe and I were on Monday, and it was very calm. It didn't seem like he didn't care about being ranked number one. It didn't seem like they were underprepared for this game coming up or looking towards anything other than this week. And yeah, like Joe was saying, he wasn't giving us a ton of intel on like quarterback situations or injury situations, but what he did tell us, it seemed like the team is very calm, level-headed, not overwhelmed by these expectations or this newly touted number one ranking from the AP. So I think they're going to be fully prepared. That defensive coordinator for ULM made a mistake of saying that to just give them another reason to prepare even more. But that's kind of the Saban coaching tree that Sark seems to have, where it's like he tells them as little as possible. And also every single opponent, he's playing the exact same. So it's like ULM is going to be into it for a long day, I think.
Justin, you showed up at Inside Texas, 2013?
2013.
Eric, you were around a couple years before. I was there doing baseball and then got full-time 2016. We've never had a team this good to cover. Have you all kind of realized that as we go through, seeing what we're seeing on the field, not only last year, but this year, that we haven't seen it this good as long as we've been covering it and around Austin for a long time?
Hell no, I don't take that for granted at all. The 2018 team was okay, pretty good. Would have been better if a couple underclassmen didn't declare the year before, Malik, Deshaun Elliott. But and last year was good. They had some rough patches there. They had to win some tough games. I think they're better for it this season. Learning how to win was a big deal last season, but this is by far the best team they've had since 2009. I think this team is actually better than 2009. 2008 was really good. Maybe it's in the ballpark of 2008. So that's we're in the hallmarks. People are like, it's very serious in here. We're just hanging out. We'll be a lot more fun after the game, probably before the game on Saturday. But yeah, it's a very good team. The climate sets up very well for Texas. I think there's only a couple of teams that can really compete with what Texas can put on the field. Ohio State is who I picked to win the national championship before the season. I picked them over Texas. Kind of regret that right now, but Ohio State's going to be really good. And then you've got Georgia and perhaps Alabama. Other than that, it's those four in Texas, or those three in Texas, that really stand out right now. And the rest of the schedule is pretty forgiving based on early returns from how we've seen the rest of these teams play.
It's going to be real interesting to see Alabama and Georgia play in Tuscaloosa.
I think Alabama might be a little bit better.
Yeah.
Right now.
I think
so too.
Ryan Williams has been a revelation on that offense that needs it. And Speaking of, there are a few big games around the country this week. You've got SEC play really getting into full swing. Texas is 1 week away on that, but there's some fun stuff in Norman. There's fun games, I think, all over the country. And if you want to get in on the action, got to go to Prize Picks. Use the code Inside Texas. Play $5, get $50 instantly. Couple squares I put together. I'm rocking with the Shadur Sanders more than 307.5 and Dylan Raiola more than 219.5 for those squares. I think Shadur is going to have to pass his way to a lot of wins for the Buffaloes if they want to have a chance. And I'm kind of a Dylan Raiola believer, so enjoying that. Go to Prize Picks. It is just easy now. You can pair this with a more than 1 yard Caleb Williams square throughout this month. So if Caleb Williams completes a pass and it goes past the line of scrimmage, boom, you hit that square. So make sure you head to Inside Texas. Go to Prize Picks. Use the code Inside Texas. Play $5, get $50 instantly. Trying to think, what are some of the other things? Is there anything, James, on this ULM team that you're trying to take note of, or is just another game where Texas has to play to Texas standard?
I mean, I think similar to UTSA, even if we don't see them play to their standard, it'll just be a talent edge. ULM is kind of ugly in the efficiency numbers. They're not super great on offense. They can run the ball all right, but they haven't, they played Jackson State and UAB. So they haven't exactly ran into a front like Broughton and Alfred Collins and Big Bill Norton. So I do think I would hope that we execute better this weekend than the last weekend because there were some busted plays. We gave up a bad sack. Arch did a little bit of scramble drill stuff. So I'd hope to see a little bit better execution and running the ball better would be nice this week for sure.
There's also a Texas ULM connection. Brady Sarkeesian and General Booty went to high school together. And so there's some familiarity there. General knows Coach Sharp pretty well. And as most fans know at Inside Texas, we're pro Booty. And so there's some little storylines there.
Yeah, there's too many. The ratio at Inside Texas is way too off to be pro Booty, buddy.
I think, and even though he's the name and he's the NIL darling to an extent, they don't ask him to do anything. Like I guess they're kind of like Wyoming stylistically, but that Wyoming team was better. This was a ULM team that I thought maybe number 134 out of 134 this year. And to their credit, got the revenge win over Trent Dilfer, got a good win over a new era Jackson State. But I think life in the Sun Belt and in Fun Row is about to be tough.
Justin, the demands of the job require that we ask that we write about what we're looking for in this game, and I might as well just recycle the Colorado State, UTSA articles because it's just really is Texas going to execute. Cam Williams, how about no penalties from Cam Williams? Keep it clean on the offensive line, like James said, get the ball rolling a little bit with Jarrett Gibson. Don't really want to see much of Trey Wisner or Jaden Blue. And just a clean overall game. The only way we're going to have takeaways really from that game is if they play poorly. Like even if they play really well, there's not going to be a whole lot to take away. It's going to be on a Mississippi State.
Yeah,
and this is a game that I think they added very late in the scheduling. The scheduling cycle because they were anticipating 9 conference games, or maybe thinking they had 9 conference games. They only get 8 from the SEC. They had to have a spot game, and ULM needs that paycheck to maybe cover some of the buyout money they used last year. So this was a late ad and something that just very, very quick. I wanted to get to this one. Is Arch going to opt out of his junior year and declare for the draft? Eric?
I don't think so, but it depends on how much he plays this season. I think if Quinn came back, turned an high ankle sprain, and Arch played 6 weeks, and then he had a full year next year, that's probably enough developmental time for him to think about it seriously. But I think on the current trajectory, he's going to play 2 full years, so 2 years after this. And I think they play the long game. They're not in it to win. They're not in it to be drafted number 1 overall. They're in it to win Super Bowls. They want to be prepared when they get to the NFL. They want to be ready to contribute. You see a lot of these young quarterbacks, especially this year, and we kind of knew it. Some guys got overdrafted. We're going to struggle as rookies. The Mannings don't want to do that. Now Peyton had his growing pains. I think he threw 28 picks as a rookie, but he also threw 26 touchdowns. So they want to come in and be mentally prepared. Sark is about as good as it gets, is getting his quarterbacks ready for the NFL. I think they're playing the long game. That goes back to why they picked Texas in the first place.
I'm curious how the quarterbacks in his recruiting class may, factor into his decision and where they might end up. Like Nico's been tearing it up pretty early, but at the same time, you look at Jackson Arnold, who has not been tearing it up. So I feel like if he's the first, him and Nico are the first to get out, they're going to be probably the highest ranked quarterbacks in their class. And honestly, Justin, I wonder if they look at
it. Doesn't matter, Joe. His last name is Manning. If he's in consideration to be one of the top 3 quarterbacks, he's going number 1. No GM is going to want to pass on a Manning and see him develop into a combination of his grandpa and his 2 uncles, and watch that happen. If it's anywhere close, no, but there's just too much risk. I mean, you think it's risky taking small Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. Imagine taking anybody over a Manning that's good enough to be in the top 3 draft picks. It's just not happening.
I think, Joe, it's going to be like Eli and Phillip Rivers, him and Nico. Those will be your 1 and 2 guys.
I think that'll be fun.
Phillip was better than Eli. Eli just had a really good defensive line.
We can talk about the present a little bit. How many touchdowns for Arch and how on Saturday? James?
I think this game they're gonna, he's gonna get obviously a little more real-time touches, throwing to the Bond, throwing to the ones. I like a couple passing TDs, maybe 1 rushing, but I think we're gonna try and establish the ground game. And then the thing is, people need to realize is he's probably, now that we have no Quinn, he's probably gonna be out midway through the 3rd, and you're gonna have Trey Owens in, and the offensive plan is gonna completely change. So I don't think Arch is gonna go for more than 3 or 4 TDs.
Could this be a game where we finally see Cole Lord get some action now that he's the 3rd string quarterback, Justin?
Dang right. Hey, Sark's been talking about Lord in press conferences. You got to love that. Guy's got the best quarterback room in the country, and he's talking up the walk-on. Sark is the guy.
Hey, they recruited Lord hard. They wanted Lord in that room.
Yeah, they did.
They wanted to build depth. Sark actually had to put forth a pretty good effort to get him. So that was who else was involved in that? J.M. Jones, I think, was involved in that, or I can't remember. But they actually put in a lot of effort for Cole Lord. It wasn't just that his grandpa went to Texas and was an esteemed.
His older brother was at Texas too.
Yeah, but they didn't take it for granted. They recruited that kid pretty hard. So that'd be a really good story once he gets in.
Boone, his little brother, is also a recruit.
Did y'all see I think it's Real Analytics tweet about Isaiah Bond being one of the fastest guys in the country this past week, and the speed? I think the number was like 21?
22. He broke 22.
22. And Justin, we've talked a lot about on this program on Inside Texas about how they see Isaiah Bond as being, similar to Xavier Worthy in the speed sense. And that was a very real example of it on Saturday against the Roadrunners.
Well, you'll remember one of the games I covered, Arch, in high school, they played that cover 3 the entire game. He rushed for like 100 yards in that game. He had to run a lot of that game. And so you got to see a little bit of that speed it's more real than deceptive.
You're talking about Isaiah Bond, the wide receiver, ran for over 22 miles per hour is what he was talking about.
I know. But I expect that from Isaiah Bond. Isaiah Bond's one of the fastest guys in the NFL. I think it's unique that they've got so many of those guys topping 20. Arch, Ryan, Bond. Hell, I think if Bolden gets him one, I think he's going to be up there on there as well. It's just a ridiculous amount of speed. Bond is he's fast. I mean, that was his calling in high school with speed. There was always a little bit of question of his focus and his hands, but never, ever that God-given speed. And that's, I think, we just saw it. We just saw it on display. It wasn't on a deep ball. That was on a catch and go.
That's what I was about to say. Like those just a bubble screen can turn into a 50-yard touchdown with this wide receiver crew. And that's something that few offenses in Texas history have had, and few offenses around the country had. Kind of going back to the Arch thing, Nico runs that it's veer and shoot offense. I don't know how that prepares him for the league. We've not seen a lot of veer and shoot quarterbacks succeed, and obviously Steve Sarkisian has the pro style. But Nico's got some traits. Arch has traits too, but Eric, I'm curious what you saw in this one. Wanted to go at with.
No, I mean, I think he makes a good point. There's been a lot of those run and shoot quarterbacks. Yeah, we've even seen it from the Heupel tree have struggled in the NFL or making the transition to the NFL. I think it's a valid point. But it goes back to what I was saying. Nobody's taken anybody over a Manning if it's anywhere close at all. So, but Nico's going to be fun. It's going to be probably a lot of fun to watch him Saturday night. Unfortunately, they play at the same time as Texas, so we're going to still have to keep an eye on that one. But I think they're getting ready for a really big game in Norman. And it's going to be a big coming out party for Nico. I mean, everybody's talking about him already, but the casual fan's going to get to know Nico in ways that they don't yet.
I'm concerned for Jackson Arnold because that defensive front is probably going to –
they're good.
Make life difficult.
Legit.
Got a good one from C. Gaddis. Gunner appears more agile and overall athletic than JT Sanders. Justin?
Gunner's great. Gunner is manufactured. He's worked hard. JT is born that way. JT was a hell of an edge until he discovered catching touchdowns was higher up on his priorities. I'm not going to shortchange Gunner at all, but JT Sanders was the #1 athlete in the nation in his class for a reason. And one of the few things Tom Herman did right. And so I love Gunner, and I think he's done tremendous this year, and he's going to continue that. Him and Quinn have a real connection there, but JT Sanders is an unbelievable athlete.
JT moves better. There's no doubt about it. He's looser hipped guy, better change of direction, fluid. But I bet you Gunner runs a faster 40. I bet you Gunner runs a faster 40 than JT did. What did JT run? 4.7, 4.68, 4.72?
It wasn't good.
JT tested terribly.
Yeah,
he was put the film on and
bench pressed 8 reps. I mean, come on, man, get after it. Gunner's going to beat that in the 40. I bet you Gunner would beat him in a straight line race. But man, Jatavian is very.
Gunner's going to have more reps on the bench. Now we're talking Eric's business.
You could have any less. You
Jatavian have like 8.
You cannot have less reps on the bench for someone that weighs 250 pounds.
Amen.
What this kind of leads into another thing I got to ask Sark about this on the conference call is, he always talks about quarterback being the most important position in sports, but he always is big on tight end and its importance in his offense. And James, he talked a lot about Juan Davis and what he's given. And I think maybe people expected Amari Niblack to be that second tight end, but Juan Davis has taken that role and kept it for the first 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, Juan Davis, I noticed a lot of him in practice, and he was a guy a lot of people didn't really know because he's stuck around. He's an older guy, upperclassman now, and he's kind of fallen into that perfect role right behind Helm. People thought naturally that Niblack would come in and be that receiving tight end. I think a lot of people thought Niblack, the average fan thought Niblack would lead the tight end room in yards or receptions, but it's turned to be Helm, and Juan Davis is – hopefully they'll get some more reps this weekend. But, yeah, Juan Davis is really impressed. Sark had a nice quote about him that we put out on the Twitter earlier today.
How much is it, Eric, with you when you take an athlete, when you take someone who played quarterback and played the go-win-the-game position, how much development does it really take to get him to be playable at the SEC level in this offense?
Well, it just depends on each player. Everybody's different. Clarity of position is very important the second they get on campus. That's number one. He had that. They knew they were going to have him at tight end, but of course he had Jatavian Sanders right in front of him. That consumed a lot of oxygen. I think he lost a little bit of motivation due to the fact that it was just going to be an uphill battle for playing time. We've seen that in the past. I think Cam Williams got a little bit out of shape the second Christian Jones decided to come back at right tackle last year. But once you realize it's your time, you better get after it because this is really your only shot to make it right, especially as a senior. So, he brings a lot to that room, a lot of versatility to the playbook. His ability to block is a game changer for Sark. These guys are way more valuable behind the scenes than I think the common fan will realize. The common fan checks the stat box, wants to see catches, wants to see it put in the end zone. But he's making life easier for the running backs, making life easier as an outlet receiver. He's only got a couple targets. We'll see that take an uptick. But overall, he's just a good player, very popular teammate. Everybody's very happy for him. He's always been popular behind the scenes, sort of a quiet guy, but likable. And so everybody's pulling for him. And, he's always had the ability, and now he's getting to show it.
And Sark has been loving on him since the springtime. He loves a guy that's stuck it out. He knew that situation, and Juan never blinked, which in the portal era is kind of rare. And so everything that Eric said, I love that. And I love that Sark has made sure to make a point. Hey, Juan Davis, for our boy Malays, he's thick, and the kid's got some playing time this year. I don't think it's gonna stop either. Niblack's just gonna have to keep pushing.
Any concern about him jumping into the portal, or is he bought into the process?
I mean, concern isn't the right word for me. Is it possible he would? I guess it's either, are you going to leave and go find a new home, new offense, or are you just going to stay where they're going to ask you to block too? Or are you just going to stay here and keep working on it and see that you're going to have a chance to be the number one tight end next year? They're going to lose Gunnar Helm. They're going to lose Juan Davis. So I don't get why he would just quit. To me, that would be quitting. He's already in a good situation where they use a lot of two tight end sets. So just keep plugging away, stick to the script, and see how it plays out for all these guys. Look how it's playing out for Juan as a senior. It'll play out for Amari as a senior if he wants it to.
Before we keep on going, got to go to LC for some love for Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512, or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description, as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
And of course, if you're here, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you haven't yet, head to InsideTexas.com. You can get 2 months with promo code IT1 for $1, 4 quarters, 100 pennies. We don't take cash, but we would if we could figure it out. I like this.
Well, I've had some old people try to pay me in cash. Like, I'm just gonna go throw it in a machine. Oh man, yeah.
I like this question, and it's something that we haven't seen yet. Do y'all think Texas has a reliable power run package for the goal line? They've been good in the red zone, James, but what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing we've noticed. One of the major improvements, because last year that was where they really struggled, was that on 3rd and 4th down and goal, they were really not efficient at finishing out drives. But so far, it hasn't been a problem. I mean, we haven't seen a ton of power run package, a little bit against Michigan. And again, like in these cupcake games, it's kind of just you can outman them. So, I mean, so far, I'd say I've been impressed with what they've done on the goal line, and it's good to see. Like, every area that they were struggling in last year has improved this year, whether it be secondary or red zone efficiency. So far, not a problem, but we'll see as we get into SEC play.
We saw a sneak, right, in that one of the red zone touchdowns. Like, they just had Arch Manning sneak it in.
Yeah, he did.
That's a different factor, but they've been able to throw the ball in the red zone too. And again, James, like you mentioned, these are cupcakes. They may not be showing everything, but Justin, is this an area that, because it's still a little bit of an unknown, is it a concern, or do you feel a lot better about Texas in the red zone and in the goal line?
Man, I feel a lot better after watching what they did against Michigan with Jarrett Gibson. I think his role is expanding, and part of that's going to be red zone and goal line. That guy's got some Frank Gore to him. He just gets down. He's like a bowling ball of knives, man. You don't stick your hand in there. That's a guy that I think just plows forward, and with his size, and he's so young, I see some Cody Johnson there, a guy that can be reliable in a role, and then in a year or two maybe carve out being one of the top 2 rushers on the team. I think we questioned what that was going to be this offseason when Savion Red went up to Nevada with Coach Choate, but right now I have no concern, because I think Jarrett Gibson's a kid that he doesn't know what he doesn't know, if that makes sense. He just goes. He runs the play. He hits the hole. He knows what to do. There's no thinking, and that right there is the key with him.
I like this one.
Cody Johnson with a deep pool.
Yeah, we've been doing this for a while. Question for the group: does the 12-team playoff or the longer season favored Texas and other top teams due to more reserves seeing the field and not hitting the portal. More playing time equals happy players. I'm trying to unpack this one a little bit. I mean,
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, undoubtedly, it gives you more opportunity to play guys, and obviously playing time is what they're all after. That not only the longer season, but also just Sark's his inclination to rotate as much as possible because he realizes it's a long season. So you've got 77 guys have played in 2 games so far this year. Was the Colorado State game and the UTSA game. They had 77 guys play in each one. Yeah, that's going to make players a lot happier. They're going to realize that, if they better practice that week because there's a good chance they're going to get in, even if it's the fourth quarter. They're grading the fourth quarter as hard as they're grading the first quarter. So there's a lot of positive returns to that. And then the longer season, the playoffs, now they're going to tighten the bench in the playoffs. It's not going to be – they're not going to be playing 77 players in the playoffs, unless they somehow draw that 5th seed and get the 12th seed, then maybe. But the more playing time, the better. The more games give you more chance to play these guys. The new rules allow them to play players. It's not only just they can play in 4 games without accounting towards a red shirt. They can also play in the conference championship game and a playoff game and it not count against a red shirt. And they keep blowing people out. There's a lot of playing time. So yeah, these guys are all after playing time. It allows them to develop for the next year. For a number of these guys, 2024 is about 2025. But yeah, it does make for a happier locker room. There's no doubt about it.
The thing is that this favors Texas just because they are deep. They have that depth that you talked about. And there are some teams that are playoff contenders. Like I think USC is a good example. Like USC is a really good team on the front line, but who knows how deep they are, especially at some of those defensive positions. And, even if one of their big receivers were to go down, it doesn't look the same. Texas, it's a little bit different. So I think just the depth helps. And like Eric mentioned, that helps players get playing time. That always has everybody happy. IT is the best Longhorn info on the planet. Thank you, H-Bomb Horn. D-line has played better than I expected. In your expert opinions, are they on schedule? What is the ceiling expectations for the season? Let's start with edge. And I think that this is a position, James, that we had high expectations for, but those guys are playing really good football and even scoring touchdowns for Texas.
Yeah, shout out Westlake chap, Ethan Burke, for that one. The edge room has been really deep because even like Joe and I were talking the other day, Burke was getting a lot of first team reps last year. He's not getting as much this year, but you're seeing guys cycle in like Trey Moore. He maybe hasn't had the statistical year that fans are looking for, but he's still a game impactor. And then, of course, Colin Simmons has been really impressive. Like, I think a lot of people he's starting to catch people's eye, not necessarily surprisingly, but it's because this is the monster high school kid that people have been seeing for years on social media. But it's like, all right, when he got that tackle against Michigan, they got another huge shack this weekend. I think they're going to be just fine on the edge. They're getting a lot of quarterback hurries. We'd like to see some more sacks because those two things aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. But D-line play has been great interiorly. Last year the bar was so high, but I think so far run defense has been great. I don't know if they'll be nation's best like last year, but you got some big boys. That's what people don't realize. We got a lot of depth. We have a lot of transfers, guys like Bill Norton just sitting back there. So, I love the D-line. I don't know what you guys think.
No mention of Barron Sorrell. I think Barron Sorrell is going to be perhaps the most important player when they get in deeper into the SEC conference and playing teams that actually want to run the ball. Teams like Kentucky, Georgia, of course. Barron Sorrell is a really, really good, well-rounded player because he doesn't have the sack numbers. I think he flies a little under the radar. But his shock power at the point of attack is very impressive. We saw that play last week. He's just a full-grown man out there. The defensive tackles are not going to be as good, but I think there's a chance that they're going to be every bit as good as far as penetrating. Now, playing the run straight up, it won't be the same. But I think team defense is already looking a lot better than last year. This team is a lot better suited to taking away what the opposing offense is best at. So if they want to run the ball, they'll load up and stop that. They'll drop a safety in the box and do that. If the team wants to pass, then they got the secondary to slow that down as well. So this team is a lot better. And a lot of that is due to the fact that the defensive tackles did not drop off nearly as much as people thought. We wrote all offseason that Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton were going to bring it this year. They're showing it. The depth behind them, I think, can still improve a little bit. Sark seemed to have some comments today that seem like they might be directed towards those guys. They're practicing like we expect Texas players to practice. Like maybe they weren't quite doing that before. I don't know. But yeah, that room is good all around. Edge, G tackle. But overall, the whole defense is just playing lights out together.
And I don't care that it's UTSA. Alfred Collins split a triple team Saturday. Yeah. That's determination upon size and strength. That's what we've been wanting to see from Alfred. That burst that we've seen glimpses of, but not consistently. This group's on schedule, if not ahead of it.
One of the cool things about the Big 12, and I think in the past 2 or 3 years, as Texas was in its final stages in the Big 12, they get to the SEC. The Big 12 had a big bang of air raid, pass, and then basically from like 2016 on, there's kind of been a big crunch of running the ball, and that's invited Texas to be in their base defense. And that may be the most talent on the field at one time when Texas is entered into their base defense, because you've got Norton in the middle, Collins and Broughton on either side. You still got Anthony Hill and David Benda back there, but then you also still have Sorrell and Trey Moore and the other Bucks on the field. Like, that's fun to see, and I think we're going to see that a lot over the course of SEC play, because that offensive evolution has still kind of taken place, but there's still some big dumb run the ball type offenses in the SEC. Justin Wells, how about a question from Justin Wales? How do you feel about Hakeem Stewart skipping his junior year so he can skip his senior year to reclassify and enroll early? Number 1 in the country with 2 years of high school football. I think he's at Edna Carr now, but this is a prospect everybody knows about. What's the latest with this one?
Somebody had brought this up on the prospect board earlier today, and I mentioned, does anybody know where he's playing football this year? Number 1 player in the country, not playing football this year. Probably not playing football next year. Man, we Eric and I met him at the Under Armour in spring, and he looks the part. I mean, he looks like a college-ready defensive lineman. But, man, sometimes these recruitments take on a circus. They take on a life of their own, and he's been changing schools. And he's not playing, and you want guys playing football before they go to college. You want to see that on the field, even though they've got it, you still want to see it. Skipping 2 years of high school ball feels like kind of a steep curve. I just think that's kind of the future now. Every class, 1 or 2 of those top guys is going to get in the NIL phase, is going to get into reclassifying, is going to get on how they can get money the soonest, the earliest. And so this one's going to be, just to say, every time you hear or read about that recruitment, just play circus music in the background, because that's what that's going to be for the next 18 months.
I think one of the funny things with this recruitment, and correct me if I'm wrong, the schools interested are LSU, which makes sense, USC, I think Miami, and then Texas is mentioned, and Ohio State. Like that, those are elite football programs, but they are also they know how to make sure that the game is played pretty well in the NIL sphere. I like this one. Talking a little bit about college football in general, rank these road trips or stadiums for the following: USC, Michigan, Bama, and Texas A&M. A lot of differences there. A lot of different places.
He threw Vandy, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. Apparently he can't write all of this in one coherent sentence. That's our Sneezy Beltran for you. Rank them according to what? USC was fun. I was with him. I got a picture on my shelf with him and my wife and me. So we know he had fun there. Michigan was great. He didn't make that one. Do the math. Might have had something to do with it. Bama, that was great. Took my wife to that one. Texas A&M, that's actually falling on her birthday. I promised that we'll take her to that. Don't worry about it, babe. Vandy, Nashville. Isn't that where Hawk Tua girl's from? Josh, that's probably the only one he'll make. Ole Miss, been there. That was great. Would love to go to Tennessee. Can't you take a boat to Tennessee? That already puts Tennessee at the top.
Vol Navy right there. Let's see. I went to USC, survived it. That's a cool experience out in the Coliseum. Michigan is cool. I've likened it to just pure football focus in a way we haven't seen. And then Bama is awesome. It's Bama. I've not been to the new Kyle Field since they rebuilt it, so I'm curious to see what that looks like. And then, I want to see Rocky Top. I mean, 100,000 seat stadiums are always pretty cool, and that'll be one to really check out. Justin, have you seen? I know you saw USC. You've been to A&M, right? Any others?
Yeah,
that
I've been to A&M. The rest of them, I'm on the couch every Saturday. I don't get to experience that stuff.
Oh, that's not
The way it goes.
Trey.
I used to do it every Saturday, and then no more. So it is what it is.
Vandy will be interesting. I think Vandy's going to be a stadium where there's a lot more burnt orange than black and gold.
Well, I went to a Kentucky game there,
and Joe still owes me a road game. I ain't forgot it.
Well, you're gonna have plenty of chances later this fall, right?
Yeah, after all the good teams. Yeah, I get to go to Fayetteville for the 4th time.
Just
that place is so backwards.
That is one of the loudest places I've ever seen as well. But part of it's because they have an open
worst fans in football.
Anything else? Any other topics y'all wanted to hit on, or we will, Justin, you and I will be back here tomorrow morning to kind of go around the SEC and do some last minute discussion of the Texas game. Anything else from anybody?
No, I'm good. I'm ready to see if the Astros got no hit or not.
Oh man, it's been make sure you take your shoes off before you watch the Astros games, right? So James, Eric, Justin, thank y'all so much. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Like I said, we'll be back here tomorrow. If you haven't yet, use the promo code IT1. Get yourself 2 months of Inside Texas for just $1. It's the #1 team, $1. Don't miss out. We will see you next time. And thank you for watching Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.